I'm Vin.
I'm Sori.
If you would like to get your song reviewed, dear listener, there's the filthy capitalist option. As Sori says, $125 gets you straight to the head of the line. You don't have to be a part of Alliance. You don't have to be part of the group.
Wait a minute.
And the biggest thing is you don't have to wait. You hop, skip, and jump right in front of everybody. $125 gets you there. You do that 3 times, and you get mashed down to the $75 rate for perpetuity.
Yes!
Also, there is a band review option. So if you've got a band and you're trying to get your band some exposure, hit me up at insori@gmail.com, and I'll show you the details about how to pull that off.
You can also jump on Patreon, and there is a option on the tiers to be able to get your band reviewed. Yep. Obviously, we can't lie to you, so we can't guarantee a positive review. Get what you get.
It's just rubbish.
Rubbish. That's British for garbage.
My favorite is the community option. $1 at the gate gets you in at Patreon. You get to join an alliance. The alliance joins their points together, and that helps determine what songs that we do.
The alliances hang out on Discord.
Message me on Patreon to get the link.
And they do all kinds of other cool things. They do Minecraft, Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah. It's really a community within the community. Anybody can go in the village, facebook.com/Vin and Sori. There's 160,000+ people on the channel. What's cool about the Discord is that it offers a real opportunity for community connection, friendship, that type of thing.
And it's on Discord, so if you're not a Facebook person, it's for you.
You start off at $1.
Right.
Plus you get exclusives. Sori and I are working on a song. So the first 15 seconds of that was on Patreon. Also, at $15 tier and above, when we actually debut the video, they're going to be there live with us. There you are, dear listener.
Buy merch.
Sen yön jälkeen aamu ei tullut.
This is for
our good and dear friend Kai. For his brother also, who would be 39 today.
Rest in peace to the big homies with the Ain't Sof.
Yep.
And we'll all be there with your brother soon, inshallah. But for now,
This was a pretty impactful song to Kai, and so he wanted to share it with us and the village and give a shout out to his brother. The title means dear brother.
And Kai was generous enough to translate the lyrics for us. So with that, here we are.
Sen yön jälkeen aamu ei tullut. Päättyi nuoruus ja päättyi syyttömyys. Sinä vuonna, kun kesää emme saaneet, vaan kevään jälkeen saapui pitkä syys. Yksi joukosta on pois, hän on meidät jättänyt, ja tämä suru nyt meitä vanhentaa. Hyvä veli, en sitä silloin ymmärtänyt, on jo paljon myöhäisempi kuin me koskaan luultiinkaan. Emme ikuisiksi syntyneet kukaan. Kaikki tulleet on tänne kuolemaan. Ja jokaiselle merkitty on päivä, jolloin hänet kotiin kutsutaan. Mutta kun joukosta on pois yksi hyvä mies, kuin lähtenyt toisen aikojaan. Hyvä veli, en sitä silloin ymmärtänyt, on jo paljon myöhäisempi kuin me luultiinkaan. Pettäisin sinut, jos jättäisin kaiken kesken, ystävää. Meillä muuten kai laskut kävi tasan, mutta tässä kohtaa velkaa jäi. Olet joukosta poissa, iso suuri mies. Loput kuittaan, kun taas kohdataan. Minä kiirehdi en, mutta ymmärrän sen. On jo paljon myöhäisempi, paljon myöhäisempi. Kuin mä koskaan luulinkaan.
I can see why that one broke you, Kai. Holy moly.
Didn't he say it was like that he wasn't? Like he didn't cry about it, then he heard this song and he started crying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I was listening to an interview with one of my folks, and he was talking about, losing people or whatever in his particular line of work. It's very, very common, and so he'd have to call people's parents or whatever. He said I testified, like he was a complete stonewall, man. Like he was, this guy's blah blah blah. All right, gotta go. And then his cat died, and then he lost it. Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting because I remember I was reading that note last night or whatever, and what Kai was talking about, and my brothers at my mother's funeral, they were having a hard time, so I had to get up there and speak, represent my mom and my brothers, and then I went off and did what I had to do for the rest of the day, and so it's strange. I think she died about like 3 years ago. I'm not sure, but it's a strange thing when you have somebody that's such an important part of your life to know that they're gone, and then processing it and dealing with it, and obviously the most recent Mother's Day was very difficult for me, but the three of us, we kind of dealt with it in our own ways, I guess. But man, that's tough stuff, man. But lyrically, holy moly, the lyrics were crazy.
Yeah. Yep. I thought there's some things that I, haven't experienced to the degree that you have, obviously. But when he said, and this sorrow now ages us, I was like, yeah.
Well, I showed you a picture of that guy, that dude from Chicago. Mm-hmm. I said, how old do you think this guy is? Well, you said 28?
I wasn't like ridiculously off.
He was 21. I think there's a major difference between 28 and 21. I don't think there's a difference between 58 and 51. But I do think there's a big difference between 28 and 21. But the guy, I mean...
He did not look 21.
He had like 5 bodies in total. So, I mean, he both of his parents were dead. His brother got killed while he was in jail. And he went out and, avenged his brother. But I mean, it just ages you, man. Like you see this stuff, and people like that die around you. It definitely, like, take something away from you. That's like, since my mother died, like, I'm a completely different person. But you know, the thing about Kai is he you know, because he's one of the folks that, like, I love, you know, everybody on the channel, we love the support, obviously, for sure. But Kai, you know, obviously he's become an actual, like,
yeah, he's a next level
close friend of ours, mine in particular. So, you know, but it's even different with your brother, man. Like, obviously, you know, I talk about my mom every other second, but, and that was his little brother.
To my understanding, yeah.
Yeah, Kai doesn't, you know, when I talk to him, he's not a bitter person, and there's something still very childlike about him. And for some reason, he's found some way to not let that stuff, like, you know, because the song talks about
like
losing innocence, you know, the end of his youth and the lot.
Yeah.
And, like, obviously life's going to do that to you, but Kai doesn't seem to be, like, he still seems very, very innocent and childlike. And I think that's one of my favorite things about him. But it definitely does do that to you, though. After the night when the morning never came. That's such a good line.
When it said that year when the summer never came for us, but after the spring came the long autumn.
Yeah.
One from the pack is gone. That to me was just so sad because
It's brilliant writing, though. Holy shit.
I always, like, autumn I think is a beautiful time, but it's also very depressing to me because I know what's going to follow.
Right.
And so, like, my dad, you know, he experienced loss in his life. He lost his brother, he lost his father, and for him, he said the first year is the worst because it's all the firsts that you have to experience without the person. And then he said after that it gets a little better, but you're never healed from it. But
it's an interesting line. Year when the summer never came for us, but after the spring came the long autumn. The long autumn.
I know.
I that's such an
and
accurate.
he said summer, then he went to spring, and then to autumn.
Yeah.
You see that order that's not how the seasons go.
Yeah, it's brilliant writing. One from the pack is gone. Yeah, man, that's, you know, if my you know, one of my brothers is off.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I got another week waiting for that text that he's cool, that he's good. Then I got another brother, he's doing good, but yeah, losing a brother, man, I don't know, bro. Cause you know, when you grow up, you there's this, like, unspoken, like, your parents are gonna die before you. So even though it's terrible, it's like, I expected my mother to die before me anyway. Mm-hmm. But your brother's, like, you think you're gonna live forever. Mm-hmm. You know?
Yeah, I think that, you know, like, for my dad, when his brother died, I had never seen my father have such a hard time. I was really little when his dad had died. He was like 24 when his dad died, so he was still a baby himself, 24 years old. And his dad was kind of like you know how there's, like, the one parent that kind of, like, they kind of make you feel a lot more secure than the other parent does.
Yeah. There's
just one that you kind of like, and that was his dad. You know, his dad was the one, and then, you know, his father passed away when he was 24 or early 20s, and then his older brother passed away. So it's just, you know, just his sister left. But his older brother, I think his older brother kind of took the father role for him, and now, you know, when his older brother passed away, that was not a good time.
Born to be eternal, we never were. All of us have come to die here. And for each of us is the day when we're called home. But when there's one good man away from us, as if he'd left before his time, dear brother, I didn't understand it then. It's much later than we thought.
The line, it's much later than we thought, has sort of a depressing feel to it, but also it's the opposite for me too. Like, it's much later than we thought is like, you know, probably when somebody passes away. I know this is what I did with my miscarriage. I didn't do it on purpose, but my head would say, it's been 2 days since the baby died. It's been 3 days since I started counting, and then it switches to years, and but so much later than we thought, as in like it's much later, things have changed, blah blah blah, but also it's much later than we thought to me is kind of a positive thing, because we're Christians, and so the later that it is here, the sooner it is there that we'll all be sitting around the table together.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, obviously, that's a big, long-standing Puritan value, which is contemplating
your frailty, your own frailty.
Your frailty.
Yeah.
That you're not going to be here forever, and so you have to be very sober about. You know, and I think the Puritans, most of them missed on the balance. You know, there's a balance between just being morbid about introspection and death versus being, you know, ignorant, walking around in Neverland and not facing reality. There's a balance there somewhere, and most of them, in my opinion, didn't strike a very good one. But it made for very good angsty poetry. But
can you bring it back so I can make sure that we're being recorded?
You know, he says,
Sound.
you know, like we came here to die. You know, I was just explaining to Dorian the conscious agents theory, which is basically this idea that you've got that consciousness preceded matter. Mm-hmm. And most people are physicalists. They believe that matter preceded consciousness. Hoffman's argument is that it's impossible to boot up consciousness from matter, which I agree with. And then so then it's like, well, what is the physical world? And it's basically his theory is that you've got millions and billions, maybe trillions of these consciousnesses that exist, that then create this sort of interface, so that you've got a stage to work out relationships via experiences, right? So you've got all these consciousnesses floating around, and they're like, hey, we want to interact and relate to each other, but we're basically missed right now, so we can't do that. So then they create this sort of physical interface so that they can meet each other and all the rest of it. So it's a very, very fascinating idea.
Do you know
because yeah, go ahead.
You know the statement, there's a fine line between love and hate?
Thin line, yeah.
Fine line, thin line.
It's a pretty famous quote, sorry.
Yeah, okay, whatever. Anyway, I always heard it as fine, all right? So anyway, in that, do you think that's because there's like multiple consciousnesses? And so there's like one consciousness that's like, I'm madly in love with you, and the other consciousness is like, what the fuck, I hate you.
I hate that. Yeah, yeah. I hate that. Well, that's the other side of it, is that's the other thing that obviously what I just said is mind-boggling if it's true. But the second thing right under that's amazing is that he believes that there are multiple consciousnesses that are driving this body. Mm-hmm. And so I'm sitting in the car with Dorian and I'm explaining all this to him. He's like, what? And I'm like, I know some of this shit is crazy, bro, but like some of it is a lot of the stuff is biblical, you know, like what is seen as temporary, what is unseen as eternal. You know, there's a lot of this stuff. And obviously as Christians we believe that consciousness preceded matter. And we also believe that the physical world was created so that God could interact with us. Mm-hmm. And all that. So it's just a very, I'm obsessed. I'll probably be obsessed with. I'm reading. I bought his book immediately. Like I'll probably be with that for the next 5 years.
Yeah, he dives real deep into stuff. Last night I'm in the kitchen cooking, and I can hear our 6-month-old screaming angrily, And so I came into the living room to see what was going on. And Vin is just standing there, sitting there looking at him. And Reza was in his high chair. And he had Vin's sweatshirt like this. And he was just going, ah! And just yelling at him like that. And Vin had like this fascinated look on his face, just looking at the baby. I'm like, what is going on? He's like, you were thinking about his multiple consciousnesses and what they were trying to say.
Yeah, I was.
I'm pretty sure that consciousness.
I looked at him. I said, "Hey, you're pretty frustrated, huh? Because you can't talk. You can't communicate with me."
That's so sad. And the thing is, like, I've never seen Reza get that angry.
Yeah. Well, that's because usually it's a baby. The baby, like, you know how people are. They get held hostage to the baby's affections. So it's like, oh, the baby's paying attention to me. So as soon as the baby's like, hey, I want you, most people are like, hey, good. But you know me. So I was just like, I'm going to watch this little nigga, see what he's doing.
His face was bright red.
Yeah,
I was like...
Yeah, he was...
The whole scene was weird because I came out and the way that you were looking at him was like...
Well, you know, babies, they have this sense of entitlement.
Yeah.
You know, like, Orion takes his little chair.
Fascinating.
He takes his little chair and he puts it down, and then he puts his legs up, and he's just like, yeah. Man, like, this is the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah, this is the way it's supposed to be.
So, my point is, I don't think we come here to die. I think we come here to meet each other.
Oh, I see where you're going. Yeah.
And that's the point that I'm making. Is that we don't come here to die. We come here as consciousnesses to meet each other.
And to meet God.
And to meet God, ultimately. And to meet God in each other. And to meet each other in God. And so, once you get out, once that mission's been accomplished and you meet the people you're supposed to meet, because those are going to be that's going to be the team that you're on in the next
your crew.
In the next world. Once you meet those people, then life begins. Whatever happens after this.
What's happening here?
The kids you got to tell them to stop calling you.
Yeah, but
or
they
you gotta
call when it's important.
Time out.
No, they can put their feet in. They had Daniel call.
Tell them not to do that again.
I will, but...
What, they're at the creek?
Yeah, they want to swim, but... I don't know. What do you think? Up to their waist?
I don't want to talk about that right now. But, yeah. So, anyway. That's the team that you're on. You find your crew, and then... whatever the next phase is, that's real life.
Yep.
So
that means you're going to be with us eternally, Kai.
And I like the third line too. I'd have betrayed you if I'd leave all unfinished there. So like if he went and killed himself, he'd be betraying his brother.
Yeah.
Which is his friend.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
right.
I guess we can call it even.
Right.
But this is where I'm left to owe you. You're gone from the pack, great man. The rest I'll settle when we meet again. Yep.
I think that there's like a lot of people in our village that have experienced loss of different sorts and kinds, and sometimes you have good closure before someone passes away, and sometimes you have no closure. Sometimes you're on bad terms. And I think obviously that increases the pain of the situation, but that's where your worldview can help you or not help you depending on what you see. For us, we believe that in the end, all the children of God are going to be seated around a big giant table having a big giant feast together. So I think about that day actually quite often, mostly when I think about your mom. I mean, it's probably going to sound really selfish. I know that you're going to want to see your mom, but I also want to meet her. So I want her sitting by me at the table. And I feel like maybe in that realm, maybe you won't just have just two sides. Maybe there'll be like more sides that you can have. Because I want her on one side of me, and I want my baby that I lost in her arms. Then you could be there too.
Yeah.
That actually does sometimes bring me comfort. I think, she's probably with my baby.
So anyway, all of us that are still here, luckily we found each other in the village, and you guys are our friends, and we are very, very grateful to have you guys. You would be surprised and amazed at how many times you guys have saved our lives even. So thank you for that. Thank you for being a part of our village and hanging out with us. It's an amazing song. Everything was well done about it. It just, it was top notch. It's a silent count because of, we're honoring Kai's brother. But definitely high rating there. That's a very good song.
Yep. Love you, Kai. Love you, Jamie. Stick around, boys. I'm out of here. Vin out.
Sorry out.
Gone.